All right, welcome back everyone to another Tour Tuesday event. My name is Lizzie Gray and I'm a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. And as always, I will be your host. For today's event, I'm joined by Ed Meyer, the Eugene Springfield Fire Station and Training Center, from the Eugene Springfield Fire Station and Training Center. Ed, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Captain Ed Meyer. I'm one of the training captains at the regional training facility here at 2nd and Chambers. We're attached to Station 2 for those of you that are familiar with the area. So that's right there at 2nd and Chambers, right before the Chambers overpass or the railroad. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, folks, before we start, I want to remind everybody that by now you should have watched the tour video that Jenna would have sent you on Friday and then again this morning. If you haven't watched it already, please do so after the Q&A. It might help provide some context, and it's also just a cool video. And as always, while we are talking, we can't hear or see you, but type any questions in the chat box or raise your hand and we will unmute you so you can ask Ed yourself. We have plenty of time, so make sure that you ask all of the questions you have. All right, I'll get us started. So just, softball question. How'd you land here? What was your career path?
So I started my career as a firefighter in my mid-30s. I was about 35. My formal education I have a bachelor's degree in business and accounting. I bounced around in securities, basically buying and selling mutual funds. I then got into tech and became a computer programmer. I did that for 8 years, and about when I hit about 30, I decided I needed to do something that was not at a desk. So I started volunteering at a fire department down in Grants Pass. That's where I'm from. And next thing you know, a year and a half later, I got my paramedic and applied for jobs all over the state. Got offered one at Eugene Springfield, actually it was Eugene at the time, in 2006, and started as a firefighter, promoted to captain, and now I'm a training captain. And then so that's a really short version. I've been doing this for about 15 years, so since 2006.
Okay, so like many people that we've hosted, regardless of industry, you've kind of hopped around to get to the career path that you're on.
Correct.
Okay.
This is where I'm going to stay until I'm too old to do it anymore, and then I'll figure something else out. But this is by far the best job that I've been around and have had, and it's been a wonderful ride so far.
Got it. So what makes you a not ideal candidate for a desk job? Like how did that manifest within you where you were like, I can't do this anymore? What did it look like?
So computer programming very specifically, it's not that the desk job is not something I enjoy. It's the fact you're completely isolated. So I like a team environment. I like being around people. I like getting to know people. I like getting to interact and also get better at what I do. So when I got into the fire service, it wasn't like I dreamed all of my life of becoming a firefighter. My career path was going to be college and then career and be super wealthy and super happy. And it didn't necessarily work out that way. I was happy. I had a good family. I had a wife and kids by the time I got the job up here. But when I started volunteering, the calls that you go on, the opportunity to be involved in something that no one else that I knew could do, it's too simple to say exciting, but you get to think, you get to make decisions, and you get to react in the moment. I enjoy the decision-making process. I enjoy the emergency side of things, and I enjoy being one of the people that people look to solve their problems.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, it wasn't so much the desk job aspect of it. It was, in fact, the isolated, not around other people in your own world that I was looking to get away from.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you're looking for potential candidates that enjoy a team environment, that like teamwork, thrive in those environments.
Yeah, so for professional firefighter, you live in a fire station. Our schedule, we'll get into this.
Yeah.
Our schedule at this department is you work 24 hours from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day.
Okay.
You sleep at the station, you run calls, you train, you cook, you clean, you just do the daily activities as a group, as part of a group. So as a captain, as an engineer, there's 3 ranks: captain, engineer, and firefighter. There's some stations have 3 members, some stations have 5 if there's an ambulance there, and some stations have 9 to 10. They'll have a truck, an engine, an ambulance, and a chief, and you all as a group. So you can imagine how high energy that would be. It's people like me, it's people that are a little quieter, but it gets loud, it gets fun, but it's also, when it comes down to getting down to business, we go to work. So if you enjoy being around people, if you can get along with people, that's one of the number one criteria we have, is getting along with people and learning how to work with. There's 270 people, different personalities, and some are easier than others, just like school, just like every business you've ever been in. If you get along with people, you enjoy working as a team, but also enjoy self-direction and self-motivation, this is a wonderful opportunity for you.
So this next question is going to sound a lot like an interview question, like a true job interview question. But Ed, tell me about a time when you didn't get along necessarily, or your personality clashed extra aggressively with someone that you were working with and like basically cohabitating with. And what did you do to work through that?
So this is much like having a roommate. So as you get older, there's a point in your life where you're going to have adult roommates that may or may not be friends, either college dorms or afterwards. So one of the things, you have to wake up and that person's going to be there in the morning, and they're going to be around. And so you have to understand how to work and deal with this individual. So at a fire station, it's exactly like having a difficult roommate. And maybe I got follow-up. I had to schedule it for 15 minutes. Sorry, I got to. So you have to, at the very least, be polite and deal with that individual, and also be willing to accept that you're that individual.
I like that.
Right? Because if you've never had a problem with a roommate, you're the problem. You're the roommate with a problem. So those of us that I got married a little bit later. I was 28, although that's normal now. Right. So I had roommates, and there was a time where I really didn't want to have roommates. It was a difficult time to be an adult, but I couldn't afford my own house, and so that's what you get. So number one, you have to understand the issues that you create for people.
Sure.
I'm not for everyone. Lizzie, I'm not sure if you're for everyone. I'm sure you are. I'm sure nobody's ever had a problem with you, right?
Ever.
Right. So clean your dishes, don't be the roommate with a stinky towel in the bathroom.
Right. Or the opposite. Don't go crazy about how it has to stay perfect. You gotta, I tend to be on the opposite end of that coin.
So absolutely 100% what you have to accept what you have to accept your whatever your contribution is to the issue.
Sure.
And it's much easier in an office setting. It's more difficult when it's a 24-hour. We do 24 on, 72 hours off. So that's 3 days off. And then we do 48 on. So 2 days and then 72. Okay. So man, and trust me, it gets rough because, who's cooking, who's not, that kind of whole deal. So I would say that lower your expectations for how people treat you, but treat people with respect. And I've never really had a serious problem.
Good.
But you also, there's people you just don't feel like working with, and that's just gonna be natural.
Sure.
But are you gonna go out and tear into them right away, or are you gonna learn how to get along with them for that day or two?
Right. And as a captain, as a leader, somebody that people come to with their problems, is that, I mean, is this how you would coach them through that? Because I'm sure they bring you their like social problems.
100%. So you also become sort of a family.
Mhm.
And so, because with us, you go to battle, and I mean, go to these. So I'm a paramedic,
Mhm.
and all of 80% of our personnel are paramedics. Okay. All of us are EMTs. So paramedics, the highest level of EMT. And so we go on calls that are, for lack of a better term, horrific. The most emotional calls that you'll have, and the most difficult calls you can go on. And so you're working with people. Thank you, Barb. We don't get to work with wonderful people like Barb every day. But hey, Barb, could you shut my door, please? Hold on, let me do it. So you have this thing where you go and you have a bond around trauma and shared experiences. And so no matter whom you're working with in any particular day, you're going to have an emotional bond because you've seen some terrible things together and overcome them together, and you rely on each other in those moments. So those are, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question appropriately, but those are the kind of bonds that you form. And so we all have kind of a deeper bond, even if we don't work with someone all the time.
Sure. Sure.
So you're asking me about counseling people?
Right. It sounds a lot like kind of like a sibling relationship. You're not going to get along, but there's a foundation there that's different. It's a family relationship. So even if you don't,
Right.
You can't.
And so it's easier in bigger stations, because if you've got 11 people, there's a lot less. It's if one person's causing a problem, it's 10% of your issue that day. There's 3 of you, it's 35% of your issue. So it's 1/3. So it makes it more difficult. It magnifies it. One of the good things about our department, we have 16 stations, is that people can kind of, not always, but can kind of get together. And so like personalities will tend to find each other.
Oh, okay.
Good and bad.
That's great.
Yeah.
So not midlife, but into your career, like 8 years, a decade into your career, you pivoted. What kind of schooling? So you had a bachelor's, but what kind of schooling or certificates did you have to go back to earn in order to do what you're doing?
Okay, so in Oregon, you're at minimum going to be an EMT. So I don't know what they're called anymore. There's an EMT, basic, intermediate, and paramedic. There's 3 or 4 levels.
Okay.
There's also first responder, but you're going to have to be a basic. So I did my EMT basic in 5 weekends, starting Friday night at 6 o'clock, going to 10 o'clock, and then Saturday 8 to 5, Sunday 8 to 5.
Okay.
5 is really intense, compressed, and I came out the other side with my EMT basic. I tested with the state and came out with my EMT basic. That will allow you to test with many departments within the state. So Portland City, there's departments around Portland that will do that, and there's some more rural departments that will hire you as an EMT basic.
Okay.
You can imagine it's pretty competitive because there's a lot of people, including myself, that meet that requirement. So there's thousands of people that meet that requirement. If you get your paramedic, which is what I have, in Oregon, it's a 2-year degree through a community college.
Okay.
And if I were to give, what I give everyone the advice is, part of getting your paramedic is you get your EMT basic.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that, then you can start testing at other departments while you're in school, and you could potentially get hired as an EMT basic for that. But for example, when I got hired here, when I tested at Tualatin Valley, which is the surrounding area of Portland, it's a second largest department in the state. There were 1,800 people that tested for that job, of which they hired under 30.
Woo.
So I tested extremely well,
Yeah.
got invited to go interview, and after that interview, they did not select me.
Wow.
So out of 1,800 people, I finished 35th, and I still didn't get hired.
Jeez.
So now with our department, if you have your paramedic, because they didn't care about paramedic at the time. With our department, if you get hired as a paramedic, there will be 60 applicants
Okay.
for 20 jobs.
Okay.
So
Better.
if you can pass a background, you have a driver's license, you have a decent amount of personal skills, high likelihood that you're going to get accepted into our academy if you can do that well. Much easier, not easier, much different than when I was applying.
Okay, got it. So does that still exist though, that if I just had my EMT basic, I would be testing against others with the same level?
Yes, see, we don't even hire anyone other than paramedics in Eugene.
Got it. Sorry, I missed that.
So if you go to 12th and Valley, they'll hire it.
Okay.
The city of Portland with 500 or 600 firefighters will take you with a basic.
That makes sense.
You can go out of state with the basic. It's just excessively competitive.
Mhm.
So if I were to give advice, which like my son and his friends are in high school, if they want to do it, just go get your paramedic. Go get your paramedic. Go volunteer with the department. But number one way, without question in Oregon, to get a job is to go get your paramedic. And it's fun. It's a good program too. The programs are good around the state.
That makes sense. Okay, so I get my paramedic. I apply. You all accept me. What happens next? Is there like 6 weeks of training?
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
6 weeks of training?
No, close. It's almost 6 months. It's about 4 months.
Okay.
So it's an academy. We're in the middle of an academy now. We have a big academy this time. We have 13 people in this academy. And some of them have no fire experience.
Okay.
Most of them have limited EMS experience.
Okay.
So working on an ambulance or patient care, limited, but they have some. But we have half and half. We teach you how to be a paramedic in our system, and we teach you how to be a firefighter anywhere. And it's extremely physical. You're basically 8-hour days, 5 days a week. We have written tests. We have practical tests. We have training today. We're out there just doing basic fire evolutions on the drill field, pulling hose off the engine and practicing getting it into difficult areas and things like that. Half of the class is doing that today, literally, and half the class is doing EMS. They're doing patient scenarios and patient care simulations. And then at the halfway through the day, lunch, they swap and someone get to go outside and have fun, and someone get to go inside and do that. So that's what a day would look like. And we work out 3 times, just straight physical fitness 3 times a week. I'll give you an example. When I was 35, I got hired. I was in the best shape of my life at that point. I've always been in decent shape, but I got in extremely good shape. I was drinking 2,000 calories a day of protein shake in my 30s. I still lost 2 pounds, but I gained so much strength.
Wow.
And it was nonstop physicality. And you wish that you could have someone forcing you to get in that kind of shape. It's for people like being physical.
Sure.
And when I was a training captain, I go out there, and so is my partner, Jason Lockett. He's the other training captain, and Engineer Manley, he's the other guy. We go out there and we work out with the recruits. Okay. And everyone's the same, men and women, we all get together and we all just die out there.
You said when you were 35 and going through it, it was super intense. Is it equally intense? It hasn't changed?
That's our intent. No, because we have to, because that's exactly it. It's basically the same. We went through the academy and we have only fond memories. I mean, there's stress and all these other things, but we have fond memories. Our instructors were great, and we wanted to have that same kind of environment where our recruits respect us and emulate our example. And so we're out there working out with them and doing this stuff with them every single day.
I like it. So you said you're in the middle of one like training cohort. How many times a year do you open it up?
We're doing another one. So we're hiring in August. We're starting a second academy. It's going to be, if there was 12 people available, we take all 12.
Okay.
And so I think we're going to get around 10 that are going to be available. So if you're on the list, you could pass a background. And we thought you were ready to be employed by us, you would be in this next round.
Okay.
Remember, 50 something people applied.
Sure.
And if all 50 of them would have made it through, we would have only excluded a few of them, because we take everyone we can if they're available. But the problem is they also get hired elsewhere. If they're good enough candidates, they'll just go get hired somewhere else in the state.
Good point. Is it an incentive at all for you guys when you see a candidate's local, like has grown up here locally in Lane County?
Yes. Guess why we would like that?
They're going to stay around.
There you go. Exactly. Because they don't want to go. They won't go to Portland. They won't go to the big city or go back home.
Right.
Because we give them this wonderful academy. We give them a huge head start. We just lost one. She was a great candidate. She went to Ben. Ben was hiring. Ben stole her. Who doesn't want to live in Ben though? But so Ben took her, and she got 2 months of high-end training here, and I was happy for her because she wanted to go. So it's great. But I'm sorry she's gone.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. So yes, in this area, it is a big deal. If it's an equal, even a slightly more advantage to the other person, if you're from here, you're likely to get selected by us.
Okay, good to know to the students, Lane County students on the call.
Right.
Okay, so we, following Tour Tuesdays, often have something called Working Wednesday. They're webinars that help students build professional skills while they're still in school. And a couple of the, I'm thinking of like 3 topics. So when in your job, do you have to be adaptable?
Oh, it's anytime. It's literally the second you show up in the morning to see who your crew is, and then every single call with the public has an element of that, some more than others. Now, you will fall into a routine that can get dangerous, especially with EMS, with the emergency medical stuff, because you get complacent. And I've been on thousands and thousands of calls, on EMS calls, and they all tend to feel kind of the same, and they do tend to go typical. But you've got to stay out of that complacency. Otherwise you're going to miss something, and you've got to make sure that you're giving the best to those patients at that moment. So you got to stay adaptable with that. So for sure.
Okay. When do you use empathy?
Okay. So depending on what station you are, but in this town, there's a lot of homeless. And I also do some work kind of outside of the fire department with this team called the high risk team, which is we take the top 30 or 40 individuals in the county, top 30 or 40 highest utilizers of service in the county, at risk and just like significantly special needs, meaning mental illness, abuse, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. And so the empathy question that you're asking me is, a lot of these people in the streets are difficult to deal with. They have abandoned by their families, in the grips of addiction, mental illness, or they're just difficult people. There's a category of them that just exists. That's just in it, and that's so when you're out there, they know that we have a service that they can access. So if they want us to come out there and solve the problem, and that's not necessarily the job of the fire department, not necessarily the job of the police department. It's it just starts falling through the cracks. So I signed up to be I use this joke. I signed up to be a hero. I signed up to be, on a, pulling people out of burning buildings and all these things. The empathy comes in when you realize the things I just mentioned, which is this person has been abandoned at a young age, abandoned by their family, in the grips of addiction, and you've got to temper their terse response, and you've got to decide you're going to help this person because they are at the bottom of where they intended to be. They did not intend to be homeless at 45 years old. 65 years old. So that is the most time I get to, for me personally, to exercise empathy is in those moments with the difficult people that are down and out, that are basically demanding help.
Service, yeah.
So we are there to help them as best we can. And that's when you just kind of overcome a certain primal urge that you have to show anger, whatever. It's like, nope, this is, I get to go home to a house.
Yep, that's totally true. And it feels a lot like how you answered the adaptability question, in that it's something that you practice constantly. And so you can't get into a zone where you're not being empathetic. You have to go into each situation leading with empathy as if it's your first.
Yeah. Yes, it's exactly right. You've got to, don't give yourself permission.
Sure.
For me, this was a hard part for me, because don't give yourself permission to take out frustration on helpless people.
Right.
If you look at them as helpless, and like, of course you wouldn't pick on them, but they're coming at you sometimes. So it's like, you've got to really just understand what's happening. Yeah. And it's not me they're mad at.
Right. No, not at all. Just misdirected anger. Totally. Yes. Totally. Okay. Last professional skill, solution mindset. When do you have to solve problems?
Okay. So again, this is one of those things, it's all the time. It's not. Sometimes we don't ever go on calls, and it's just simple things so the most, I don't want to use a wrong term here, the most dynamic and challenging, I guess, and almost, I don't want to, maybe exhilarating, is when you're going to a fire and you are the first company that's going to be there. As a captain, you set the stage for all the other responding apparatus. So there's just a straight house fire, there's going to be 4 engines with 3 people on each engine. There's going to be 1 ambulance with 2 people on there. There's going to be 1 truck with 3 people, and there's going to be a chief that's going to be showing up. 2 chiefs are going to be showing up, and they're all listening. So you'll roll up, and you have to set the stage. You have to decide if you're going to go inside, put all your gear on, and go inside and find the fire. You got to decide, is it too far gone? Am I going to stay outside and put out this fire? Is there a rescue? And how am I going to confirm that there's no person inside?
Right.
And if there's people inside, it gets magnified times 1 billion. I mean, you can't even imagine and you'll hear it in your headset as you're going. The dispatcher will be calling, and they'll be telling you on the radio as you're going that reported confirmed victims on the 2nd floor and trapped. And it's like, kids. It's an old lady. It's like, holy moly. So you really get ramped up. And so those are the times where there's no way to get all the information, right?
Yep.
So you're gonna go up, and you've got your ears going, and then you got your eyes going when you show up, and then you got to go, all right, I'm going to risk my life and this other person's life.
Well,
right now,
relaying like other information to
while sizing it up. It's like, before I get on the radio and say what I see to everyone coming in, I've made the decision. If I'm going to risk, actually, it's funny. You don't really think about your own self. You make sure you're dang well sure you're thinking about the person that's behind you.
Yeah.
You're going to make that decision, and those are the really challenging and most rewarding calls, I would say.
Okay, great. And I feel like that's an example of a really big problem to solve. I also really remember we were walking through the garage, and you all told us about how frustrating it is when cars are parked in front of fire hydrants.
Right.
We're literally just coming up with like an immediate instant solution to that problem. You said it's typically breaking windows.
Right. Well, that gets put on YouTube, and people enjoy that. I've never done it. I have one of my first fires I ever had as a firefighter. There was a car that had parked in front of it, and you look at it, and I'm like, well, I can figure this out. So I had to come around it. I remember very specifically what I did. I draped the hose over the top, and it was okay. Yeah. And the guy came out. This was 3 a.m, and he came out. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I'll move it." I'm like, "Not now." It's like, and I was. By the way, I gave myself permission to be mad at him.
Sounds like he deserved it.
Yeah, exactly. And he was just more because this thing that's not going to happen. But it literally, his neighbor's house burned down, and his car. This is off of Moon Mountain over there. It's funny. I remember that call very vividly. Oh my gosh. But yeah, you make decisions.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, say I was a high school student and I knew I wanted to work in your field of work, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. If I was to job shadow at your fire station and the training center, what kind of jobs could I see?
So you can do a ride along after COVID's over. Sure. We'll figure out what we're going to do with that. But once COVID is, and once we decide that we're going to allow visitors again, you can sign up. You'll fill out a background. You'll get permission if you're 16 and over. If you're 18, you can just sign up yourself, and you come dressed appropriately. And there's rules on that. Basically, just decent shoes and put a shirt on, probably pants too. So yeah, you just got to be dressed appropriately, and you can ride along in an ambulance or an engine. Mm-hmm. And you will see and should participate in cleaning, participate in cooking, participate in watching the rig checks, which is what you check, make sure everything's working. Mm-hmm. And with any luck, you won't bring the writer's curse of no calls. You'll go into people's houses. You'll see how people live. You'll get to go if there's a wreck on the highway. You'll get to go to that. Stay safe. If there's a fire, you'll get to go. Most of the time, you will at least get to go to an EMS call, which is you'll get to go to someone's house and get to see us go to work on that. So it's an interesting. You get to see how we interact with each other. Yeah. You may hear some salty language. So yeah, it's any and all of it can happen in a day.
What about some of the non-traditional jobs? So I think we immediately picture like EMT, EMS, firefighter, paramedic. Sure. But what about like barb? Like what about barbs?
Yeah, so we have billing. We have a billing side of things where you will be processing ambulance billing. So people get charged to go to the hospital, so bill insurance, that kind of thing. So there's an EMS only job, which is you can get an EMT basic. That one that it took me 5 weeks to get. You can get them around the state. I think it's usually a full term at Lane Community, but you can get them a compressed accelerated basic, and you can get a job with just the EMS, just an ambulance, and it's a basic life support. It's non-emergent transport, but you get to live in a station. Some are 24 hours, some are overnight shifts, not 24-hour shifts, but some are overnight shifts, and you can work there in that role. There's Barb is support for the training division, so she's up here and she accumulates, she creates my tests, she creates the EMS tests, she creates we have development programs that get people prepared to become engineers or captains. Okay. And she helps with that. There's fire marshal, which is another track. You're not actually going into fires, but you're investigating the fires after they happen and doing code enforcement and code and talking about code stuff. Yeah. So like fire codes and that kind of occupancy things. 911 too. Barb, thank you. She's been listening. So and she says nobody can have her job until some of us leave. Maybe that's gonna work. So 911 call center is out here, and that's a good paying job and a way to kind of get an idea of what we do with the police and fire.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Okay.
Yeah, so the Central Lane Communications, they run a lot of the dispatching for emergency responders within Lane County.
Okay.
And yeah, there's some just administrative staff stuff like in any office.
Okay.
Good city job.
Are the Barbs and the the administrative staff folk, are they part of the family, or is it very much just like the unit of
Absolutely part of the family, especially if it's Barb. Barb's, she's here. How can I say anything else?
I'm part of the family.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I'm different. I'm in the training section, and so I'm closer to this group just by proximity. The way our building is set up, I'm in the same hallway. I work 2 doors down from Captain Meyer. So I'm close, but my job is in training, and some of the other admin staff, they have different functions. They're in finance or billing or
support the chief, the chief level executives and that kind of thing. So that all exists.
Okay. So some admin folks just don't interface as much with you all.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, couple of student questions here. What experience and skills are good for being a call center worker?
Well, you've got to be able to handle, it's a stressful job. And it's so you go from call taker to dispatcher and both. So the call taker will be sitting there taking the 911 calls and typing it in and sending it to the dispatcher, and then also in real time sending it to our apparatus via like an email thing. So we're reading as we're going. So as they're getting information on water rescue or a hazmat call or a fire, we're getting it all in real time once it's been dispatched. So taking input from multiple sensory overload stuff and being able to filter it out and get it going, that's a really good skill to have.
No kidding.
Multitasking got to be it.
Good typist.
Yeah, and typing. Yeah.
I've heard that, and I've just heard this, so this could be completely off base, but one of the like practical tests in becoming a dispatcher or an operator is to like watch something, read something, and listen to something and be able to like accurately repeat back what you were watching, reading, and listening to.
That's probably true. I've not heard that, but that's absolutely what they do. So they will be sitting there and they will be typing and talking simultaneously. Think of it like a drummer and a really good drummer, keeping time and singing sometimes. Like, forget it. I can't. There's no way I could do that.
So there's another question here from Gracie. Gracie, thank you for this question. I do want to preface it by saying, Ed, please don't feel like you need to share anything that you're not prepared to share with this group, but what was one of the hardest situations you've been in and how did you handle it?
So that's a question I think about. So all of us have a little bit of post-traumatic stress. It's just going to happen. You see some pretty difficult things, and the most difficult situations are for me are the fatal kids. So kids that are dying or dead, and you see their parents going through it, and that is easily the most traumatizing thing. That, you know, if I ever in my next career, when I become an actor, if I ever need to cry, I've got about 3 or 4 of these situations where I can turn on the water, like immediately. Yeah. So those are the hard things to do. So the way we overcome it is I rely on my crew, and I talk about, I'm an open book. I could get as graphic as you want and really describe how I'm feeling, and I'll cry in front of you too. I don't care. So the situation is, when you're in the middle of it, you're doing what they called you to do. So if you're going to try to resuscitate the kid, that's what you're going to do. And then the hard part is now that I'm a captain, is then I'm going to sit there and I'm going to talk to the family after it's over. And boy, that's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them what I have to offer them and let them know that at least the people in that room cares.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, without getting too dark, that's what we do.
Okay. Yep. And did it take you time to get to a place where you could, and I don't want to call it compartmentalizing because I feel like that can have a negative connotation, but did it take you time to build the skill of compartmentalizing so that you could do what you're there to do? You
have to get over it. And so the compartmentalizing thing is it's got a negative connotation, but you have to do it. I mean, what else are you going to do? Because if you want to sit there and sit down, you do want to sit down and cry in the moment.
Sure.
You're thinking in your head, I don't want to be here. Like literally thinking, I want to leave right now. Why am I the person that happened to be on the engine that day or the medic that day? So you have to compartmentalize in that moment. Now, we'll come back to the station and it's coming out. And you're going to hear, we're all going to hear it. And I kind of keep my family out of it, but we have services available, mental health services available through the department if we really need it. But 99% of the time, we just go back and we talk about it at the station, and we would cry with each other, and then we move on, or I go home. Sometimes I'll just go home that night. It's like, I'm sick, you're coming in.
Yeah,
that does happen. If I get another fatal kid call, I'm just going home. Like the chief just knows, like I'm going home.
Yep, absolutely. That sounds like such a healthy environment to be able to be open with your like crew members like that and to be vulnerable.
It used to not be, but yes, it's far better.
Yeah, I'm surprised by your answers, but I mean I respect them wholeheartedly.
Well, that's what but I may be a little bit different. Some people don't talk about anything. But there's a piece of us that we'll never get back. I don't think humans were designed to see some of the stuff that we have to see.
Yeah.
But I always think, well, if I'm not doing it, somebody else has to do it.
Absolutely. I get it. Okay. Last question. I'm going to totally flip it and we're going to end on something positive. Ed, what keeps you happy in your job?
Barb. No, it's the relationships. Without beginning, middle, and end, it's the relationships. You have to have challenges, and I have to keep moving forward and progressing. But that's secondary to if you don't have a relationship, you're not going to be happy in your job. So it's the relationships I have with my coworkers. And there's not a better opportunity than the fire service to build and maintain relationships. All right,
I like it. Well, thank you, Ed, and thank you, Barb, for your input. Really appreciate your time today and for taking us on that tour. It was a highlight for me.
All right. Good seeing you again, Lizzie.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week for the tour of Eugene Emerald Stadium. All right. Bye.